like you can't put all the onus on private businesses in a way. They have to find a way as well of maybe kind of what you just mentioned there, incentivizing them to offer and improve the accessibility of healthier foods. But how do they actually do that? What would be the kind of practical steps?
We're trying to work with a number of governments in Africa and Asia. A lot of these, a lot of cities now are setting up. A lot of governments are setting up big industrial parks around cities, and they're trying to attract businesses to these big industrial parks in many ways to generate export revenue. So to produce things for export, governments need foreign exchange to import stuff they can't produce themselves. What we're trying to and to do that, they will offer companies lower rates, lower tax rates, lower utility rates, a whole range of incentives to get them. They're not big incentives, but they're just enough to tip them into doing this. We're trying to say to them, you can do the same thing for companies and retailers that are producing nutritious food. In fact, you can entice retailers and producers to those big industrial parks that employ 100,000 people to sell their stuff there. So there's lots of things they can do. They can do sin taxes, which is tax the amount of sugar in soft drinks. The UK has that. But
do you support that?
We do, yeah. Okay. But you can also do virtue subsidies, the opposite. You can subsidize the consumption of fruits and vegetables and things that are good. The problem with sugar taxes is not a problem with sugar taxes. I was just reading a study the other day. It said it's actually been very successful in the UK. It's the sugar concentrations in soft drinks have reduced by 20 or 30%, but the overall consumption of sugar has continued to keep rising in the UK from all sources, all types of foods. And that just illustrates one of the big problems that we have is that it's not just one thing. There's no silver bullet here. It's 10 or 20 things that have to happen at the same time. There has to be really good government campaigns around healthy eating. You've seen those ones about that compare obesity. No, they compare. I think they compare obesity to smoking.
Yeah. Oh, they got damned for that, didn't they?
I think they're really effective. I think I don't know why they got damned, but I think they make people pay attention.
No, I agree.
It's obesity shaming.
Yeah,
I think that was the issue.
Where the issue was. But I think if you
want to get people's attention.
Yeah, and I think that was a great way of getting people's attention, because I think now we know, I think it was a couple of years ago that it was a Lancet report that said, poor diet and nutrition have now surpassed smoking as being the number one cause of illness in... Oh, that's fine.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Don't know where it is. Okay. Hope you noticed that very cool echo on the Bunny Man. Cool ring. So it is the way they did that perhaps was not great, because people can be obese for all sorts of reasons, actually. It's not just
of course. Yeah.
So, but the idea of shock and just getting through that, we're all bombarded by so many messages every day. How do you get through? And it got through to me. I really noticed that ad. So you need to create the demand, the positives and the negatives. You need to create the environment that encourages companies to do good things and less bad things. And the government needs to step up and say, schools, food in schools, food in hospitals, food in the prison service. It has to be decent food.
Yeah.
So there's 10 or 20 different things governments can do. And I'm working with a bunch of colleagues to set up a kind of a no regrets set of actions that governments should do in each country, because policymakers, they're bombarded. They're told there's 100 different things they can do to make their food supply healthier and more affordable. And there are 100 different things you can do. So where do you start? Do you start at the production side? Do you start at the consumer side? Do you start in the processing? Where do you start? Do you start with big companies, small companies? So we're trying to come up with a list of 10 to 12 things. We call them no regrets actions. It may not be the number one thing you should do in your country, but it's going to be effective. You won't have any regrets if you do it. So we need to simplify things for consumers and simplify things for governments. That doesn't mean be simplistic. The science still really matters. The science has to be translated into these simplified messages. But the messages have to be simple and they have to be unified.